Good evening and welcome. I'm Reverend Jeff Snyder, and this is Beyond Loaves and Fishes, the live stream Bible study. And we're back. We weren't able to come to you last week because there was a hiccup in the system, but it looks like that's all been solved. In fact, it looked like everything was fine the very next day. So, with YouTube Studio. And so here we are. We're back, and this is probably our last week together before summer vacation. Beyond Loaves and Fishes will be taking the summer off, give me a chance to recoup and to restore and to search out some new material. Once we have finished with tonight's welcoming community, then in the fall we might pick up on a really engaging little book called Angry People in the Pews. Just because we're living in a very angry age and people are getting very tense with one another. And we need to know how to cope with that, how to calm things down a little bit, and how to diffuse our anger, our own personal anger, and help other people manage theirs. Good evening, Sherry. I'm glad you're here. Hopefully we'll get some other people here in a few minutes. As you come in, please go ahead and say hello. Let us know that you're here with us tonight. All are welcome, and we're delighted to have you, whether you come here live or if you're watching at some later date. Once again, we are very glad that you have stopped by and hope you get some interesting challenges out of tonight's material. This evening, we're going to be talking about letting go. We started that last time, and we're going to finish that tonight. And following Jesus, all ways that we can become a more welcoming community and can change our approach so that we cast a broader net, so that more people will feel welcome to be part of the church, and will feel much more open to having people with different backgrounds and divergent points of view, and who bring new ideas to the faith, and that we will be welcoming of that. So that's what we're going to finish up with tonight, and I think you're going to find it challenging, but I've got to say that this does not cover the entire book. I'm purposefully leaving out whole chapters, and I am hoping that you all will pick up a copy of The Welcoming Community by Reverend Avilesbernal, and we'll follow through with the rest of the book, because there's a great deal going on in there, and there are quite some interesting illustrations as well that will help drive what we've touched on home, much deeper level that I think everybody will find very interesting. So we're going to get started here in just a minute or two. I'm watching my screen. I'm seeing how many people are following, and I'm looking for someone else to say hello. But I'm not going to wait much longer because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we want to get through that tonight. Which chapters have been covered? I can't scroll back through. We've covered about 6 chapters of the book all together, and I don't have those all written down. I think you can find them listed on the titles of the various welcoming community weeks, and that'll give you a sense of what all we've covered. So good question, but I don't have a good answer for you right now. So all right, let's go ahead and plunge in, and hope other people will come along as the evening progresses. All right. Now, the church today has discovered that we're just not making it on elaborate worship services, really nicely, professionally packaged graphics and videos and music bands and even live streaming. That it's not getting us where we need to be, not helping us reach as many people as we would like to reach. And we have discovered that we really need to get back to having deeper relational ties, one with another and with other people. We need to make this a priority. We need to put this really near the top of the list of what churches are doing so that we can bring people back together and learn from a deep well of church tradition regarding how to have close and deep personal relationships, one with the other, what we'd call fellowship together. And that's critical for where we want to go, because we have to understand where we've been and where we're going. And we only do that well when we're in good relationship with each other. And the church that we're looking for is a place where people value these deep relationships, and that there's an importance to being more involved as members of the community as well. So this is not only a deeper relationship within the church, but also within our community, so that the church makes a bigger difference locally, so that people know that they can turn to the church as a place that has real use for them, that where they can find comfort and they can find relationships in a very lonely age, and where they'll find acceptance, which is very difficult in this age where there is so much suspicion out there, particularly about people who come from different parts of the world. There has been a real erosion of the ability to welcome others, particularly those who've come from other lands. At this point in time, we've got a real xenophobic age going on, and that's something we need to counter. And we have to let go of the way we've done things in the past. We've talked about some of that already. Letting go of the idea that the church is the power broker for the community, that the rules we set are rules that will apply to the entire community. That just is no longer the case, and we have to let that idea go. And allowing the past to be in the past will allow us to engage in the world around us in new ways, but still without losing who we are, because we honor where we've come from. We honor the ways the people in the past solved the problems of their day, without having to pull all those ways just into the future where they may no longer apply. To let go is to move forward in freedom, because we open space for ourselves to see the world with new eyes, to feel free to look at the world without the need to have it conform to some idealized past that we have, some vision of the past that we have, which, if we're honest with ourselves, the idealized view of the past tends to be pretty fuzzy. It tends to leave out a lot of details that we choose to overlook or we have forgotten. We need to feel free to engage the world while carrying fewer of the prejudices of the past with us as we try to engage with others. We're letting go to open up much needed room for us to move forward, forgiving ourselves as well as those around us for problems that have occurred in the past, or pains that we have caused others in the past as well. As noted, our need to find blame in all of this seems to be part of the human experience. It seems to be something that's ingrained in us. It's something we really want to try to do. And we've got to let go of that as well. I found in the past sometimes that books that I've really wanted to read, I've had trouble engaging with because I felt guilty. And I've had to get over that, because you can't blame yourself for something you didn't know. But you start reading some of this and you start to get a little bit of a sweat going, and you start to try to blame yourself. and you got to let that go. You can't blame yourself for what you didn't know. So we're not looking for blame here. We're not going to point fingers one at another as we let go of things and say, well, this was your fault. If we'd only done this or that, we wouldn't be in this situation. That's not true. Most churches that end up in a deep crisis situation will end up creating a whole list of scapegoats. And they'll try to place the fault for what's happened with those scapegoats. And they can be as wide-ranging as the human imagination will allow. Both people inside and outside of the church. And we hear it all around us on a regular basis. In fact, it's remarkable how much energy can be spent maintaining grievances or hurts year after year. The scapegoating just can go on and on and on. And if that energy was actually put into something constructive, rather than this holding of grudges or this creating of lists of grievances, we could get a whole lot farther, a whole lot faster. So forgiveness is part of letting go. Because it gives us a chance to be free of really incredibly heavy loads, of burdens we just don't want to carry with ourselves as we move forward. So, and over and over and over again, the author of this book reminds us that this is a difficult process. And that's something we do need to keep in mind. It's one of those situations where anything worth doing is worth struggling to do. It's not going to be simple. And this is not a simple thing. We've taken time to reflect on where we've been, on who we are, and this allows us to focus on what we need to let go of. Some of the emotions and attitudes and prejudices that we have covered over with layers of justification of why it needs to be this way. And this can be a painful process. Letting go is not an easy thing to do. We can't start again as though it's not going to be painful, that it's not going to lead to disappointment, that it's not going to lead to sadness. Change always does those things, even as it gives us advantages as we move forward. And so we need to explore this. In fact, when this is happening in churches, when we're looking to creatively change the way we do things in churches, we really need to come together and explore where we've been, where we want to go, what we are going to need to give up, what we're going to need to let go to move forward. For instance, take a look at what we're doing here with this live stream Bible study. A few years ago, I wouldn't have believed this would ever happen. And if you then told me what we were going to do to live stream a worship service and the equipment we were going to have, I wouldn't have believed you at all. But yeah, to give a Bible study in a way that more people could attend it than were attending on a normal evening class in the church, the way it had been done for ages, required a whole new approach. And it was a very different thing. And I'm sure that it caused some mourning of the way we used to do things. But it also opened up the Bible studies and the worship services, when we get back into the live stream of the worship services, to a broader range of people. It made us accessible to a lot more individuals from wildly different backgrounds. And that's a very good thing. But it isn't necessarily an easy process. So we have to clarify, explore, and we have to mourn, especially when we're letting things go from our past. We need to clarify where we are, because this makes it easier for us to begin to recover by showing us what we need. Our chance to review what it means to give up things that are holding us back without giving up who we are is a discussion that we really need to have. We need to share with others what it is that we feel must be let go, and we got to agree on how to care for those things that are now a part of our memory, that aren't coming forward with us into the future, to secure that as part of our rich history, to leave it where it belongs, not to have it keep coming into the future in a way that burdens us and slows us down and keeps us from doing what needs to be done. It's a big challenge, but it needs to be done because when we let go of unnecessary burdens, we give ourselves a clean slate with which to move forward. We need to explore. We need to explore our own feelings, see where we are, see how this feels to us as we need to ask questions. What do you think is affecting you about letting go of whatever particular aspect we need to let go of? Is it that you love the things that we have done? Could it be that those things are alive, are kept alive as a way of keeping the memory of the people who were there at the time alive? Is it the people who participated in those projects or those ways of doing things that we really love? Is that what we're trying to hang on to rather than just the thing itself? It's worth investigation so that we better understand what it is we're trying to do. And we need to listen to each other intently and be willing to guide the conversation with probing and open-ended questions that allow us to really explore the topic. Why do you feel that you are so affected by a change in the order of service, perhaps, if that's one of the things that needs to be changed? Maybe it's the music. Why do you stand so firmly on one particular set of music or one particular hymnal? And we press through justifications until we get to the root causes. What's really affecting us? What's really impacting us? And during this exploration, we comfort and we reassure people. And comforting doesn't mean there won't be pain associated with it. Comfort is necessary in the presence of pain because it creates a space in which vulnerable people feel safe enough to share their difficulties, share their challenges. And we need to avoid superficial assurances as we move forward. Instead, we assure people that this is a process that is a healthy way to move forward together. And we need to mourn. We need to be intentional, and we need to be honest in our exploration of our feelings. And this will bring us closer to the root causes of those feelings of loss and frustration and anxiety. And as we give up something, we need to mourn its loss. Because that gives us closure. In turn, there's the mourning helps us to say goodbye to those things that we're going to leave behind. And letting go, it requires time to lament which is being left behind. Things that have sustained us for decades. And in doing so, if it's done properly, it'll keep people from sabotaging the future by not trying to pull those things back, by trying to resurrect them after we've put them away. So, and grieving our losses is really necessary in the culture we're living in today, because most of us are far too busy trying to get on with our lives to actually grieve well. And fewer things are as good for emotional health as moving towards re-engaging in life after grieving appropriately. Go ahead and getting it done properly so it doesn't just keep coming back and biting you as you move forward, going on down the line. And we aren't forgetting or discarding the things of the past, but we're putting them in their proper place. And then we can explore a new world as a child would explore a new playground. And we can get joy out of it once we've done the appropriate work. And we're going to mess up sometimes during this process. But we need to remember God is watching us. God is always there for us. And now we're going to move on to following Jesus. This is our last chapter. This is the last information that we're going to cover tonight. And we're going to try to get to this quickly because we've only got 10 minutes left. So, Jesus told us to make disciples of all nations. And the relationship with Jesus is born through the presence of Jesus. Jesus took his disciples and he made them the foundation through which the world would be changed. And correspondingly, the impetus that moves us into the journey towards Christian multiculturalism, where we're trying to become more and more diverse, just as our denomination is one of the most diverse there is today. We want our churches to be diverse as well. And what sustains us through the change is this strong relationship that we have with Jesus. And the power of Jesus' call to go forth has not been diminished over time, because Jesus, on whom the power rests, says to remember that I am with you always, even to the end of the age. We're assured of this in Matthew 28. And the disciples were also quite clear. Jesus made it clear to them that Jesus had come to save humanity, to save the whole world, not some portion of it. And the gospel testifies to this broad mission for the salvation of humanity. And we are called to imitate the expansiveness of God's love, for God so loved the world, as John 3:16 tells us. And if that's not enough, Jesus illustrated the depth and breadth of this call by asking us to love others as we love ourselves. In other words, to love them as equals. That includes the newest arrivals, who are sadly, lamentably, and frequently viewed with suspicion by the previous arrivals. Almost all of us are immigrants to this land. Something we need to remember. Jesus himself had been punished in a way reserved for the very worst of political traitors. These people had good reason to live in fear. The disciples did. After they'd seen the way Jesus had been treated, after they'd been abused themselves, yet they heard that instead of hiding or fighting amongst themselves, they were called to love everyone, including those who had placed them in this predicament, those who stood against them and who were very, very powerful. They were to love those whom they did not like. And the call, like Jesus' ministry, turned our assumptions on the way things should be completely on their heads. We aren't to take revenge and call that victory. Instead, the disciples were to find victory in loving their adversaries so deeply that their love would change the relationship of those adversaries with themselves. And to do this well, we have to have a very strong relationship with Jesus. And that's something we really have to work on. We have to ask ourselves, just how close is our relationship to Jesus? And we're not trying to blame ourselves, not trying to blame anyone here, but we need to check with ourselves and be very honest. How close of a relationship do we have? We cherish the wonder of the love of God for all of humanity, but how much time do we spend in that relationship ourselves? How often do we reciprocate God's love or Jesus's love by spending time with them? And have we isolated that into a couple little hours during the week? Is that all we're giving? We need to spend more time in our relationship to strengthen it and deepen it, and to build trust and a desire to reach out as Jesus would have us reach out to others. Churches these days tend to fall into two camps. Either they become a refuge from the world, see the world as a dangerous place and the church is a place, a bunker where you can go and be safe. Or church is a place where we learn to love ourselves. And we leave our Sunday services or our midweek meetings feeling better about ourselves. And that's really not where Jesus wants us to be. We need to find out how we can bring back the desire to play a role in the Great Commission, to actually reach out to other people different from ourselves in many ways. There are a lot of worries about how much our communities have changed all around us, and our old buildings and our dwindling populations. And all of that tries to hinder us from growth, from reaching out. All those troubles tend to make us want to pull in on ourselves instead of to push out, instead of to reach out to others, whereas the reaching out, the mission into the broader community, is actually where we'll find new life, because that's where Jesus is, and that's where Jesus is calling us to go. And building these relationships take time. And also we have to fight against a temptation to have a consumer approach to church. And in the consumer approach to church, well, the congregation is seen as the client. And so things are done for the clients to keep the clients happy. And when they do that, then the people who are in leadership are seen as the hirelings, the people who have been hired by the church to do stuff. And unfortunately, this creates a big rift between those who do and those who watch. And that's really not what we're supposed to be about, because it's not the church corporately that stands before God and is judged at the end of time. It's each and every one of us, and we're called to account for what did we do? How did we spend our time? And we need to be able to account for that well, and say that we did indeed follow the Great Commission, and that to be of help to all the members of our church community, we need to help all of the members of our church community to be active disciples of Christ, to be reaching out to others. And unfortunately, that is where we're going to have to stop right now. Again, let me encourage you to buy a copy of Welcoming Community if you don't already have one, and to really explore this book in great detail, because there's a whole lot more there that we haven't covered in the past 6 weeks. We've made a good start, but I highly recommend that you go back and read the entire book for yourself, or listen to it as an audiobook if it's available in that form, if that's your preference. Thank you all for showing up and for spending time with us again, whether you've been here during this live stream or if you're coming to us at a later time. We truly appreciate your presence. We truly appreciate you being part of this experience. And we hope to see you again in the fall when we start up again. Until then, God bless you all. And I'm going to ask you to have a wonderful summer and to work on what we've learned in welcoming communities. Now let's take a moment for prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for another wonderful book study. We thank you for this beautiful little community that we have built together, and for all the people who take time out of their busy schedule to be a part of this group and to learn better from this community what you would have us all do in the world today. Be with us now as we go our separate ways and as we enjoy the warm weather of summer. And may all that we say and all that we do bring greater glory to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, goodbye, and I will see you in the fall. God bless you all. Bye-bye.